Today we're checking out viral psychiatry TikToks.
When starting an antidepressant, you need to be careful. Here's why. This is what most people think it looks like when you start an antidepressant. Full of blue, right? But it doesn't. It looks like this. Full of nothing. That creates an issue because when you start your antidepressant, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to be able to start feeling feelings again because it's not empty. And you might add in some of the red feelings, and you might add
some
in
purple feelings,
some of the blue feelings.
Yeah.
See, now when you first start feeling feelings after you haven't felt them in a while, that's going to give you pause to make mistakes, to have problems, to new intricacies, right? So this is why it's important that you have a therapist, you have people you talk to, you have people around you that you're working with more than just the antidepressant. Because as you add new feelings to this, it can bring problems that come along with it. Because this time you will add...
All right, I've had enough. I'm going to be very generous to Phil, my pharmacist, and just say that the message was nice at the end eventually, that, you should see a therapist while you're taking medications. But the whole metaphor of this jar filled with water balloons makes absolutely no sense. It's the most incoherent thing that I've ever seen. Popping the blue balloons. What do they represent? What does the pink one represent? What does the orange one represent? What is empty? In general, psychiatric medications will numb your feelings. You'll have less feelings, not more. This kind of seems like a cracked out explanation. So anyway, let's move on.
So I've been back on Lexapro for a few weeks now, and do you know how I know it's working? Is I just got pulled over and I really didn't care. I was like, yeah, hey man, like what's going on? Like I was very nonchalant. Like, gotta do what you gotta do. Like whatever. Live, laugh, Lexapro.
And then she was given a citation, for something bad. But I find these videos crazy because you could say, yes, the drug is working. It's constricting her emotional range. But is that really good? Is that really an improvement that you get pulled over by the police for potentially like doing something illegal, putting yourself or other people in harm's way, and you're just like, live, laugh, Lexapro, no big deal. You should be stressed out about that. That is protective. And the problem is that we have all these people out there on Lexapro and different SSRIs who have essentially removed the batteries from their smoke detector in their brain that tells them when there are legitimate problems in their life, and they're just like kind of shrugging at glaring red flags in their relationship or their work life or with the police. That's not healing people. The other thing that's really disturbing about this, which I just found out, is that this phrase, live, laugh, Lexapro, has actually taken off. It is a hashtag that people bandy around on TikTok where they post videos about enjoying their Lexapro experience. You can even buy t-shirts with a deranged raccoon on them that say live, laugh, Lexapro. And so if that is you and that's something you're interested in, there is a t-shirt for that.
All antidepressants are not created equally, but here are the two best ones in my professional opinion. First one is for my bupropion baddies, also known as Wellbutrin.
Okay, so we got another one here, bupropion baddie. Who is a bupropion baddie out there? God, I think this is so funny. And this really reminds me of my friend Nicole, who has a horrific benzodiazepine injury, which she's recovering from. And she had a friend who used to call her a benzo Barbie. And so, listen, I know a lot of people with drug injuries listen to this. If you want to bandy around like a fun name for your condition, maybe you can be a benzo Barbie just like her.
Wellbutrin does not cause any sexual dysfunction, which is a huge plus. It also doesn't cause any weight gain. It actually causes weight loss. Because of that, people who have a history of ED cannot take it. Also, if you have a history of
Yeah, so let's talk about, she's right, less sexual dysfunction. In fact, it can be like an aphrodisiac for some people. It can be used to boost sexual interest, doesn't cause a lot of weight gain, and makes people kind of peppy. And this is why I was told that Wellbutrin was the sexy, skinny, and flirty drug. How about that for marketing? So I love this TikTok because everything he said is absolutely true. But what I think was very interesting was actually the comments. And so if we go below this, the first one is, don't piss me off. This is so stupid. Some of us actually need antidepressants to function. Claudia says, oh, STFU. shut the F up. Beck says this isn't how to heal real depression. Crazy Kid says this is just gaslighting. And I see this all the time. Anytime someone tries to give sensible advice that would generally work for the majority of people, they get attacked. People start to tell them that they are stigmatizing the mentally ill. And the reason is that there is a whole group of people out there who take these medications who have been told you have a brain condition, there's nothing you can do about it, and you just need to take these medications. And the reality is, after doing this for 10 years, that is not true for most people. Most people would greatly benefit from all of the things this guy mentioned in the video, but they are so shut off to it, and their identity is being mentally ill and taking a medication. Okay, so this is essentially a pharma ad. Let's break it down. The top part says, this is a reminder that needing your antidepressant is nothing to be ashamed of. It is nothing to be ashamed of. You shouldn't feel ashamed to take a medication if you really need it. There's not a problem with that. The part below it is the disturbing bit where it says, they help regulate brain chemistry like how diabetes medications regulate blood sugar. And let me tell you why that is the worst analogy ever. When someone has diabetes, you can measure problems with insulin. And when you give insulin, you actually correct those. That's not how psychiatric medications work. We've never found any kind of chemical imbalance in the brain that the drugs actually work on. Really, they work like Tylenol for joint pain. You are taking a medication which essentially masks symptoms. Now, why is this a big deal? Well, because it is misleading to tell people that there's some kind of chemical imbalance in their brain because it makes them think that they can't do anything. They start thinking that they have a broken brain and they need to take medications. That's great for the pharmaceutical industry, but it's terrible for the person who's really just looking for a solution to their problem.
I was medicated as a child because my emotions were inconvenient for the adults in my life. And I don't just mean my parents, I mean doctors, I mean teachers, anyone in the medical profession. I'm talking about my coaches for sports, any adult in my life that looked at what I...
Yeah, this is so true. This is at the heart of what's going on in the foster care system. So many of the kids in foster care, when they come into the emergencies, they are nuked on psychiatric drugs. They're on like 5 different meds, on antipsychotics. And it's because they don't have families and they're having a lot of problems at school and in their life. And the foster parents are looking after like 10 kids and they're overwhelmed. And the teachers are looking after 10 kids and they're overwhelmed. So they say, oh, go and talk to the doctor. And the doctor really doesn't have enough time to look after them and they just end up putting them on drugs. We use medications in this country as a way to deal with tantrums and outbreaks from kids. And unfortunately, there's a lot of people out here like this young girl whose feelings were inconvenient for the adults in her life, and so she just medicated them away for years.
My mom's a nurse, and when I was really young, she described to me why she took a mental health medication and why it didn't bother her. She said, well, just compare it. You would never deny a diabetic their insulin, and it's different for everyone. I have been on a medication for my anxiety and depression prescribed by my doctor for a while now, and it has helped me immensely.
Okay, so this one I have a lot of feelings about. This is a very famous actress in the US. I think it's Kirsten Bell. And this gets to the heart of something that is really disturbing these days, and that is the power of telehealth companies. Now, you might be thinking, telehealth companies, what the hell does that have to do with this video? Well, Kristen Bell is an ambassador for Hers, which is one of these online telehealth companies that sends people lifestyle meds through the mail, things like for your skin, erectile dysfunction, and also antidepressants. And when people see these videos online, they think, oh, wow, Kristen Bell, she takes antidepressants. It really helped her immensely. They're more likely to want to try and do the same thing because they know her and they trust her. But what they don't know is that she's actually paid by these companies to talk about these issues. Now, I want to be really clear here. Kristen Bell is likely not lying about her experience. She likely got on antidepressants, experienced them to be very helpful. But the issue in today's world is that drug companies can essentially canvas the group of opinions out there and just say, okay, I want that celebrity who had a good experience. I'm going to platform her. And what ends up happening is you hear all of these positive stories about people saying, oh, the drug helped and it fixed the chemical imbalance. And the hundreds of thousands of people online who have had their lives torn to pieces by these drugs aren't heard because they don't carry a commercially helpful message. Yeah, this is a really common way people feel. Some people can gain like 10, 20 pounds off Lexapro. But I tell you what you shouldn't be doing. You shouldn't be throwing them in the trash, because that is a surefire way to go into withdrawal and hurt yourself when you don't need to. These drugs cannot be stopped suddenly. You have to taper off them gradually.
Welcome to What Made Me Anxious Today, a series where my dog and I are taking SSRIs together. I'm going to take 15 milligrams of Lexapro with chocolate chips, and my dog is taking 30 milligrams of Prozac and peanut butter. This might be TMI, so let me know. But the thing that made me anxious today was I was at home in the afternoon, and we had a plumber who was supposed to come to fix a faucet in our bathroom. And he showed up. First off, he showed up, rang the doorbell. Cammie went crazy. She does not like it when the doorbell rang, so that made me anxious. And then he said it was going to be 20 or 30 minutes, and I had therapy in like an hour and a half. But he had to like run out, get a new part. He was running behind schedule. I had therapy coming up. I really had to poop, but he was in the bathroom, and so I couldn't use the bathroom.
All right, so this is essentially just a story about a guy who takes antidepressants with his dog, and he was late for therapy because he needed to poop and someone was in the bathroom. So thank you for sharing that with the internet. What I want to say about this is I think it's really sad that we put so many of these dogs on antidepressants. There was a big problem during the COVID pandemic. Lots of people got lonely, and so they went out to get dogs because they were at home. And lo and behold, when people had to go back to the office, the dogs started freaking out and they started barking and having problems, and neighbors were complaining. And so there's been a huge increase in the amount of dogs who are put on Prozac now. Don't get a dog and put it in an apartment. You know, if you are going to get a dog, have an environment where you can look after the dog without giving the dog Prozac. I mean, that just is common sense. Be a bit more thoughtful about the kind of dog. If you're going to get like an apartment dog, get an apartment dog. Don't get a very active one that's going to freak out by being inside. If you like me reacting to the insanity on social media, be sure to check out this next video.